Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. This is a pretty big one with no new series on the horizon. The one thing that we have to look forward to coming forward is the comics, and now we've got a preview of the Tylee free comic a couple weeks back. But now, out of absolutely nowhere, we have a 12-page preview for Smoke and Shadow Part 1, the new trilogy of comics, the first one obviously coming out in September 23rd. So yeah, we get this preview 6 months before the book is coming out, over 6 months. Like, realistically, I wasn't really expecting this thing for at least probably another 3-4 months. So the fact that this has come out really quickly is super interesting. Now, obviously you may be wondering, like, where did this come from? Right now, I personally don't really know the source. I think it's someone on Tumblr who got this and just uploaded it. What it looks like it is that someone in their comic store or at a convention got this thing that Dark Horse printed, which is basically just this 12-page preview thing for Smoke and Shadow Part 1, and it just has these 12 pages in it, which I find really interesting. But either way, we have 12 pages to discuss, so let's get into them. With page number 1, starts off with an absolute bang. Like, what is this about? So yeah, we see this guy obviously here on the first page is Mei's father, whose name is revealed to be Ukano. We never knew that before. He's the leader of the new Ozai Society, which we know. And yeah, he is visited by this quote-unquote spirit. We're not really sure if it is a spirit or if it's just people dressed up acting like spirits. But either way, he's visited by this guy. And he just calls him a failure, disgrace, you failed as the governor of New Ozai. Nice reference to Avatar The Lost Airbender there, because Omashu became New Ozai when the Fire Nation took it over. But either way, these spirits is revealed to be in the next page, 3 of them, all wearing robes, all masked, and by the looks of it, probably not spirits. Just you can see on the one that's talking to him here in the first panel of the page, it's got an interesting kind of design, and it's probably some sort of dress that acts like it looks like shadows. But yeah, they come to offer him a chance at redemption, and he calls these things at least the one in front of him, you're the Kamurikage. Now, that word is pretty interesting. It's obviously primarily from Japanese. Now, Kage, most people know what that is. If you've ever seen Naruto, you definitely know what this means. Kage literally means shadow, I think, in Japanese. So most people know the leaders in Naruto are basically, like the Hokage for the Hidden Leaf Village, what Naruto wants to be. Literally means fire shadow, because it's the shadow of the fire nation of Naruto. The land of fire, as it's called. So Kamurikage is something shadow, and conveniently, Kamuri means shadow. No, not shadow. Sorry, smoke. So basically, Kamurikage is kind of smoke shadow. So that explains it. There's smoke there. They look like shadows. Kamurikage makes sense. And he says the line, "Safety is born of strength," which we'll hear about later on in the next pages. As long as that weakling occupies the throne, neither your nation nor your family are safe. So he's saying that the Fire Nation and his family are not going to be safe with Zuko on the throne. Safe from what? Not really sure. Clearly these things are of legend. He's heard of them before, but all he thought was that they were just a legend. And now they're going to... Basically, they want him to redeem himself and dispose of Zuko or suffer. So, Mei's father's put an interesting predicament here. He's told to get rid of Zuko, which he wants to do anyway because he supports Ozai. But he's now kind of blackmailed by these things, kind of. They don't reveal what to keep them safe from, but that his family is going to be at risk and the nation's going to be at risk. That's interesting to get more explanation on these guys. Now, the interesting thing in addition to that is that Ukano here is separated from his family. We'll see later on in these pages that Mei's mother, Mei herself, and Tom Tom are all away because they disagree with his political views, the New Ozai Society. But enough on that. We cut straight away then to Ukano in, I suppose, the present day of the comic. And he's basically planning to act now. They had this plan initially that they were going to spend a long time putting into action, but they're going to act now because of what he's just heard from the Kamurakage. And basically, he just wants to take out Zuko. That's what he's talking about. That it's going to be everything's going to be undone by Zuko. The society doesn't seem that big overall. It just seems like there's 4 or 5 guys in the background he's talking to, and yeah, they're going to be rewarded. And I assume that relates to something else the Kamurakage said. And yeah, the next page, they know that Ursa, Zuko, and Co are coming back, and there's going to be a big thing, happening in the city with the arrival of the royal family back, and this is where they're going to try and take out Zuko or something like that. Tomorrow they're going to restore the Fire Nation to glory. Interesting, they're going to attack. Fairly basic, and there's just one guy in the background whose name is, I think, Kalo. Kalo, he comes in, he's a bit concerned, and is saying, like, you told us it'll take at least half a year to prepare, why are we doing this tomorrow when there's going to be a lot of security around? And then he reveals his premonition, doesn't say it's the Kamurakage, but he says the nation's in grave danger, and they have to make it safe for the people again. Safety can only be born of strength, seems to be the key thing that the comic is saying. And that's interesting, this whole idea. Safety can only be born of strength, which seems like a fairly standard thing. Okay, strength, you can protect yourself and stuff like that, but given the Fire Nation and their obsession with strength, power, and how they kind of think only of power rather than like what fire can actually be, maybe it's a kind of misinterpretation. And I get the idea that that's going to be something that's addressed a lot. But he seems to some extent, he doesn't mention his family in this whole time, which is interesting, so there's that. Before we get into the next page or so, some speculation here. A lot of people are thinking that the Kamurakage may be revealed to be Azula, maybe now having a new face because of the Mother of Faces, and that's why she has the mask on, maybe. They could have no faces, they could be like, but then they can't talk, so Ko's more or less ruled out. But are they spirits, or are they just people acting like spirits to get Ukano to do something? That's an interesting point. I don't really know. It'd seem weird if they were spirits, because the spirits don't seem to meddle in human affairs, especially politics. We saw that in Korra, that the spirits don't like to get involved in anything, so it's really heavily doubtful that it's spirits that are actually involved here. So realistically, we're looking at 3 people who are in fact humans, who support Ozai, who don't like Zuko, and are not already part of the new Ozai society. So they are Azula, but Azula is off doing something else. I don't think one of these people is going to be revealed to be Azula, because she left evidence that basically she could have proved Zuko was not the right one to the throne, the whole part of the search. She left that behind and ran off. So she's definitely conflicted about what she should do next, and I don't think she'd instantly try and defame Zuko again. So I think Azula is going to be up to something different. Is there anything else there, like why Zuko couldn't be doing what he's doing? One speculation I might have is that it could be some of the other fire sages. Remember the ones who basically served the Fire Lords, and then there was Shayu, I think it was, who actually helped the Avatar. He decided he was only going to serve the Avatar. All of the other ones were like arrested. I think all of them were arrested by Zhao, and clearly maybe Shayu was let go, or maybe they were all let go, but clearly some of those still have loyalty to Ozai. So perhaps it's some of the Fire Sages. It would play into the idea that they know stuff about spirits. They can maybe know how to act as spirits. They know about the political situation in the Fire Nation. But who knows? That's my speculation. Let me know in a comment if you think it's good speculation. But we move from there into the next page, and it's a whole different scene. We see basically everyone from the end of the search coming on a boat back to the Fire Nation. So this immediately puts into kind of perspective, okay, what's the timeline like now? Let's establish what we know from the Rift. The start of the Rift is basically they're at this ceremony where they reveal that there's a new government in Yudao, and it's Fire Nation and Earth Kingdom. Iroh is there, and he reveals that Zuko won't be involved in the Rift, in this story, basically, because he and the rest of the royal family are exploring the capital city for the first time. So clearly, I think what's going to happen is that this ship is going to arrive at the dock, and like Team Avatar, so basically Aang, Katara, Sokka, and I don't think Toph is right there with them because they only meet her early on in the rift. They're going to kind of go off and do something different, or else they're going to head off to the meeting with Iroh, which is the celebration at the start of the rift, which is not in the Fire Nation Royal capital, and then we're going to see basically everyone else get off the ship and do their own thing. So that explains why the groups are together now, but separate basically for the rest of the story. Now, I'm not really sure about the timeline still. Like, we know Aang is on the cover of basically most of the parts of Smoke and Shadow, so he clearly plays a role at some point, but at the same time, the rift kind of has to happen after this point, unless they explain something like they spent a few days at the end of the rift doing something before they decided to actually head back to the Fire Nation, and that's where the rift happened. But at the same time, that line from Iroh kind of explains otherwise. So I'm really thinking what's going to happen here is that Aang and Co basically leave at some point. We're going to see it happen in the rift. They leave to basically go to the scene in the rift where that happens. They'll be out of the story for a while and we'll explore other things, and then they'll come back into it later on after the rift. I think is what has to happen, but at the same time, I'm not really sure still. But anyway, let's address the page and not the continuity. Either way, we see Aang and Ki having fun on these kind of dolphin kind of birds here, butterfly dolphins, and they're having fun. She's really liking it, yeah, they just have some joke about Appa and him not wanting to, Sokka not wanting to ride on these things either. Then, yeah, they're only a day away from the main island, and Zuko's super happy to basically guide his mother around the Fire Nation now that it's changed so much. And then she just notes that you still have that sparkle in your eyes from when you were from being excited, just like you were when you were little. And he's like, "Oh, Mom, please, I'm the Fire Nation now. Stop this." And she's like, "Oh, yes, son." And so that's nice. You get some nice scenes there. It'll be good. It's so good to finally have you home again and going to see what Aang and the others are up to. Zuko obviously happy to just bring his mother back to their homeland, but at the same time, maybe not fully understanding how tough this is going to be for Ursa as the next scene actually addresses. Ikem comes up to Ursa and is kind of just like, are you okay? Your hands are cold. This is what always happens when you're nervous or scared about something. And she clearly has reservations about going back to the place where so much that she didn't like in her life happened, the Fire Nation Royal Capital. That arranged marriage to Ozai, everything that happened with that, and just it basically it being like the place where she had to leave her children and stuff like that. It's obviously a tough time for her. And then she spots that Ki is messing around with Aang. It looks like it's dangerous, and quickly brings Ki back and says, look, it was perfectly fine. They're very gentle animals. And she tries to hug Ki, keep her safe, but Ki immediately wants to be let go. She is screaming like she's in even more danger now, and she hides behind her father. This is super interesting, as it is addressed in the next couple of panels, in that Ursa understands it's because of the whole face-changing thing. Ki hasn't fully understood what's going on, which is super interesting. I like that this is a plot point that it all seemed like it was going to be happy family. It's a different royal family, but it's going to be happy times. But no, it's not. Ursa's going to have to deal with going back to the Fire Nation Royal Capital for the first time in so long, and potentially having a lot of people not trust her because effectively she was the one who took the blame for the death of Azulon, and stuff like that. And just, what will people think of her when she returns back after so long with a new family? She's going to have a lot to answer for, perhaps. And then just this whole thing with Ki, like her mother that she knew for so long is now different. She looks different, but she is the exact same. So there's an obvious setup for something with Ki. Maybe Zuko will help Ki get over this, and they'll bond in the whole kind of half brother-sister way, so that'll be interesting. And then Ursa just apologizes to Aang for overreacting and stuff like that. So I just like this idea, like Aang and Ursa interacting. It's something like we haven't really got to see that much. she goes off to just think about what's happening and stuff like that. Final kind of scene of the comic is that Ty Lee goes to visit May, and it's revealed that May's mother, whose name is revealed to be Michi, M-I-C-H-I, has also come to live with May's aunt Mura, her sister. I think. Yes. And so, yeah, from Rebound, we knew that May and Tom Tom had been basically living with Mura in this flower shop because that's what happened. But now it's revealed that the mother is there too, so clearly that explains the whole reason that the family is separate and why May's father doesn't seem to be too concerned about the whole issue of your family's in danger too. And yeah, she just revealed it's all about this political situation. All she cares about is her own children's safety. And yeah, then we get introduced to May, and May and Ty Lee have their reunion, and you know their personalities, they're friends, but May doesn't like the public displays of affection, and then you know May's mother just tries to be a little bit too harsh. Come back soon. We need your help. And then Mura's like, no, she's been down a lot. You need to let her have some fun. And then the mother's just like, no, that's just what May's always like. It's fine. And then the other setup here is that May and Ty Lee are going to have, this girl talk about something or other. Now, obviously that's going to be an important conversation, but we don't really know anything about that. The interesting thing here is Ty Lee, because the free comic book day comic this year, coming out in May, is about Toph and Ty Lee. We've got some preview pages about it. The interesting thing with regards to this comic is that Ty Lee here is not wearing Kyoshi Warrior outfit. She's wearing her normal kind of new comic design outfit. So that's interesting. Is she not part of the Kyoshi Warriors, or is she kind of off duty or something like that? She has a day off from working with the Kyoshi Warriors. And clearly she's come to visit her friend May. So the next scene will probably establish something that was set up in the free comic about what decision Ty Lee makes about the Kyoshi Warriors. Does she decide to stay or leave them? And the advice that Toph clearly gives her. Again, this kind of leads into the whole thing about where exactly does that free comic take place in the continuity. But we'll get that when we get it. And yeah, that's interesting just to know what's going on here. But yeah, it's great to see the Ozai's Angels, as the fans like to call them, starting to come back together. May and Ty Lee are, back together in the scene. Azula is off doing something, and potentially a big part of this comic. Potentially is the Kimura Kage, but we're not really sure about that. But either way, I thought this was a really cool preview. They've revealed a decent amount of information about this series, even though it's still a good far bit off. I'm really excited to see where this goes. I love the setup of this whole Kimura Kage because it's really right now hard to understand who they could possibly be and why they're so eager to get Zuko off the throne, but are not just joining the New Ozai Society to help. They're just basically forcing May's father's hand to act quicker than he otherwise would. And his organization is not very big in the first place, so it could be like a failed attack. So there's some really interesting stuff going on here with May's father. Clear setup that May is going to be a big part of this book as well. And overall, I'm just really excited. I can't wait for this comic to come out. The one bad thing about this is that this preview has come out extremely early. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to wait for this. Like, there's still about 60 pages of this book still to come, obviously, when it comes out. These 12 are only like a drop in the pan. It's our first scene. But I need more right now, because this is wonderful of what I've seen so far. But in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on the preview pages. Definitely let me know what your speculation is about the Kimura Kage, what exactly they're about, and what do you think is going to happen in Smoke and Shadows overall. What do you think the whole thing with Ursa and Ki, how that's going to be resolved, what Azula's involvement in the stories is going to be. But yeah, that is my in-depth analysis on these preview pages from Smoke and Shadows Part 1. Out, let me see, one of these pages actually says out September 23rd, so there you have it. Other than that, thanks for watching this video, and bye.